Posterity. Got it. Okay. All right. And let's see. We did a class day before yesterday at the Mountain View Dojo. And what we were doing, we just took the sense, breathe through your eyes. Okay. And we're going to explore that a little bit and also get into some motion around it. But one of the major things in Ueshiba Osensei's lexicon is he talks about misogi, pure cleansing, purification, as being our senses being clogged. And then another part of it is that all of a sudden our senses are clogged or contaminated. Then our heart, all right, also gets the contamination from the senses. And so a lot of that is just learning to deprogram the senses, which are kind of, just sort of locked into this ordinary reality, okay? And we were utilizing the image right here, where our eyes are like, we're like animated characters and the eyes pop out to here, okay? When the eyes pop out there, it just is a lot of thoughts that just, and this kind of everyday reality, which is very toxic. So just take a second or two, sometimes just breathe through the eyes. And there's a tendency to try to figure it out, am I doing it right or whatever, so go through that. And as I start to breathe through the eyes, my metaphorical cartoon character, the eyeball come back more towards my regular eyes. And of course, I'm physically breathing, but just the image, image of breathing through the eyes. Cartoon character. When we're this way, there's so much noise going on, in my brain and whatever it is that, living at ordinary levels of consciousness is toxic. So we just start to breathe through the eyes, bring the cartoon character's eyes back a little bit more into. And of course, I'm breathing. I find it easier in a seated position to breathe in and out through the nose. More my breathing is high through the mouth, the more the eyes go out there. So I'm not trying to control my breathing. I'm just trying to get the visual feel sense as if I'm breathing through the eyes. Okay, and there are a number of things, like seeing with soft eyes, for example. You're breathing through your eyes, whether you give that a nod or not. But there's a point where all of a sudden, without necessarily trying to achieve it, you get a visual sense that includes more than just the tunnel vision. And get a sense of more the whole room. Like, you can see with the camera what's behind you, but there's a visual sensing. And all of a sudden, the whole room is what I'm seeing as opposed to eyeballs out there. If I check here, my interior dialogue is a lot calmer. It's not, caught up in the toxic thoughts. It's just not necessarily our thoughts, but we pick up energies that are out there. So much of the world right now is in a very, very, very unbalanced place. So if you hang out in that wavelength, we're hanging out in a very toxic environment, and we become toxic. Part of the misogi. Breathe through the eyes. And let's just sort of get the room to some degree. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm breathing through the eyes. Where am I breathing to? Throat chakra. Communication. I'm so out there. Everything I say comes across me really strong. Don't rush. Chest, heart, chakra. World out there in that toxic place. It's very punishing. I feel punished and I want to punish. Things like compassion, love, are just words out there. But that starts to open. And out there, I'm confused and reactive. I don't have any sort of bravery or courage until I sort of learn to breathe to my belly. And when I'm out there with the eyeballs sticking out there, I'm caught in that toxic consciousness. I'm going to settle and breathe. And I'm sort of on an island dodging all this stuff. So I start to breathe through my feet. Well, we all stand on some sense of ground. The earth is unified. And maybe I'm going a little fast for you, but take a little bit of time. And since we're so visual, cleaning up the eyes, breathing through the eyes, getting more of a sense here. Once I get that, I'm going to focus a little bit more inwardly. Don't rush it. Okay. Okay. So that was what we did, pattern we worked on Wednesday. Dave, remember I kind of had everybody kind of stand, and then once you did that, we did the movement, the Aikido movement from there. Anything you can share about what happens when you kind of take that time to clean the senses out?
For me, the sort of the when you started talking about cleaning the senses, for me it felt wasn't so much feeling like cleaning as it was adjusting, bringing into focus.
Okay.
So it was like it's like the lens was dirty, and by taking the time to breathe through my eyes, I cleaned the lens and I adjusted the focus, and everything around me became, clearer, and the things that I I just noticed everything with greater clarity.
Okay. So, and how did you feel? Was there a shift in the way you felt doing the movement that we were working
Yes.
on? Okay.
The clarity allowed me to begin to feel partner more clearly.
Okay.
So instead of partner as a resistance, it was like, oh, I could just feel partner, and so I knew where to be in relationship to them rather than them as something I was struggling with. The struggle became less.
Okay. So the struggle is something we're always working on, because the more we're externalizing, more we see out there, more the eyeballs are out there, then partner tends to kind of have weight, and the situation can get kind of frustrating, or somewhat, depending on the situation, sort of chaotic. So as we sort of start to cleanse, we're using the thing, breathe through your eyes.
I mean, as simple as Uke's holding your hand and you're lifting against, the force that they exert, versus it's like, oh, the hold is just part of it.
Yeah.
Within that hold, there's also this motion. Whatever they're doing within that struggle, if I can let go of the struggle on my side, that motion is already there.
Yeah. In other words, the blend is already there as a potential. But what happens, we get so clogged up here and out there, we actually interfere with that. So,
you're looking for a result so hard that you don't see that it's already there.
Yeah. Well, because basically what it is it's a lot easier to sort of get out of the way than it is to have to do it. If you can just get out of the way and it kind of flows into itself through both you and your uke, then that's probably a lot of what O-sensei was talking about. And one of the other things,
I still have to deal with the fact that I don't quite believe it's happening.
Yeah, that's the eyeballs out here. You see what I mean? Is it going to work? Is this real? And all of a sudden we're out there, aren't we? So when O-sensei says, the actual misogi is unclogging the senses so that we just see what is, and we see and perceive ourselves more as we are, as opposed to trying to make sense. It's almost like you want to see, but there's a sandstorm. Okay, when you're in that sandstorm, if you have to make visual choices, you're probably not going to make good ones. And the fact you're feeling kind of weird trying to make visual choices in a sandstorm, especially when you have to move as part of your choices, you might start to think bad about yourself or bad about what's out there. And as the eyes kind of sort of, the breathing through the eyes brings the cartoon figure's eyes a little back here. And is that the sandstorm starts to abate. So all of a sudden, you're not trying to maneuver in a sandstorm. You're just seeing things as they are. Okay? And so much of our life is, we're out there, we're visual out there, we're in the realm of these very toxic thoughts. And then after a while, they get in, and those toxic thoughts start to invade us, and our sense of ourselves becomes somewhat toxic. So just the ability to, and when O-sensei says, unclog the senses, I think that's a lot of what he means. The actual sense of we're so visual that we there's a sandstorm in ordinary consciousness, what Bruce Lee called the noisy mind. Just bring it more here and here. Yara, you following any of this?
Yeah, I had a minor surgery on Monday, and I tried to do some Tai Chi last night, and I'm a little sore. So I'm just trying to get back into things. I wasn't at any of the classes, but I just feel like I need a little more grounding, and so I thought I would show up today.
Yeah, well, one of the things just the pattern, okay? There's such a push into, the morass of, where we live, in the world, right? And the cartoon figure eyes pop out. And when the eyes are out there, all this is going on. So our gateway for today, or, just from last Wednesday, breathe through your eyes. And try to figure it out. The eyes go further out there. Am I doing it? Am I doing it right? So you just calm that down. It's a visual image feel sense. I'm physically breathing. I do the nose in and out better for that. If I'm moving, it's a combination really of, I'm not going to say, okay, only breathe through my nose or don't breathe through the mouth, but it's an easy combination. But we're going to do some movement as part of this. And what happens is, I kind of get the sense that instead of tunnel vision, confusion, I start to breathe, feel a little bit of the room. And then at that particular time, what am I breathing to inside me? Throat, communication, heart, love, compassion, belly, courage, bravery, conviction. And breathe to my feet. We all come out of and stand on the earth in some form or another. So there's kind of more of a sense of unity, not an ideal. So take a second or two, see if you can work that process. Since they call, I don't know if he meant it was this way, but the way he described me, so I'm sure he did his version of some of this stuff. That the noise up here, the noisy mind that Bruce Lee talks about, starts to quiet down. If I try to do this to quiet that down, I make it noisier. So it's a little bit like you just put that on hold for a bit and focus on breathing through the eyes. And as a consequence of that, you'll find that the noise up here starts to abate as we go a bit deeper. And I notice physiologically, I'm dealing with the fact that I'm seeing through soft eyes as opposed to hard eyes. Okay. So Yaro, anything? That's a quick process. We're going to get up and move.
Yeah, just doing this in my work day is kind of, because I'm working from home, and
Yeah.
it kind of makes me almost nervous, because when I work, oftentimes I feel like I have to grab something, and I'm trying to let it go, and it's telling me to grab it again. And it's harder. It's better for me during the day to let go, but it's harder for me.
Well, there's so much of we're so trapped by this noise. But, little things. So since I used to pray, meditate in the mornings, he said if that was disrupted, he was still sensei. He said the day was not so good. But, this is something you can kind of do, practice when you're driving. not in a hypnotic state. To practice that. We're just walking. We're going to do this in motion, just a little bit. Okay, let's, with that in mind, we'll start with this. Now, what I'd like you to do, we're going to do a movement. Okay. Now you try that motion. We're doing the fire water change. You step back. I'm starting with the left foot forward. Okay, so try that a couple times. Okay, now what I'd like you to do, take a second or two, breathe through the eyes. Depending on how deep you get with the process, you may not get all the way to your feet, but again, I'm out here trying to do that movement better, trying to figure it out. Yeah, just where you are. Now, if you've done some version of that process, try the movement a couple times. Okay. Maybe notice any changes in the movement after you kind of work that little mini misogi. See, this is where there are no wrong answers. You know, could be like I go blank. I can't remember what we just did. This is an honest response. Sometimes you start to kind of declog the senses, or we're too busy. So when we let go of being too busy, oh, what are we doing? Or conversely, maybe the thing starts to smooth out. Anybody?
Yeah, it feels a little less aggressive. That's a
A little less what?
aggressive.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. A little less aggressive. Okay. Now, what I'm going to ask you for, instead of less aggressive, it's more of what? If you were to phrase it from a different angle, less aggressive equals more of something. Can you give me a word for that something?
Kind of like just leaning against the wall.
I'm sorry, what?
Kind of like just not exactly relaxed, but waiting, kind of. Just let it happen.
Okay.
Yeah, like
a wave, you're saying?
Or a waiting.
Waiting.
Yeah.
Okay, in other words, it's an aggressive movement. Waiting can be, Mr. O's thing. Told them, learn to wait. Boom, boom. Don't be in a rush to swing to that. The ball is going to come to you anyway. Learn to wait. Boom. So, okay. So it's less aggressive, it's more, waiting means I'm in a more centered, balanced place, okay? David, anything on your end right there?
One thing I noticed is when I first started doing the movement, I felt like I was always standing on the wrong foot. And then I took a moment and just breathed through my eyes, and I don't know what changed, but I stopped being, I wasn't as conscious of where my feet were. They just, things started to know where to be at the right time.
Well, you
A
start
little
to
bit better.
present in a feel sense. Whereas, am I doing it right? Am I starting properly? See, that's good to ask yourself, but oftentimes that's noise.
But I'd want to take a step and my weight would be on the foot that I needed to move. So I'd have to shift. And then
Yeah.
after I paused for a breathing moment,
Okay.
everything started to it stopped happening as much. I'm still aware of where my weight is on my feet, but it's not like, oh, I'm on the wrong foot or I'm going the wrong way. It was more like, oh, if I just let the movement show me, it'll show me.
Well, you can start with your weight forward. You can start with your weight back. Or you can just start with a feel sense that your weight feeling the earth there, and all of a sudden, boom. Okay. So
Then
let's,
I started to wonder whether it was whether the pattern we were practicing, is it a step forward or a step back?
yeah.
And that's when I got confused for a minute, and I couldn't move my feet at all for a second. And then I went, oh, it's a step back, and it's like, oh, that's easy. And then I did it as a step forward, and it's like, oh, that's easy too.
Well, step forward with something more like that. But just sense a little bit. For example, if I breathe through my eyes, the interior noise quiets down. And so you kind of begin to see what this is. Now, what we're going to do is that one. So that's more complex, but it's really the same motion back. So try that. We're adding a couple of moves. Okay. Now, let's work the process again. Breathe through your eyes. And working again, start to breathe through the eyes. And I start to feel the room to some degree as opposed to the tunnel vision. The eyes are starting to come back from out there like a cartoon figure. Reasonably here. Where am I breathing to? I'm going to do there we go. I just mutated the movement. That happens. So as the movement wants to kind of expand out, it will do it. Maybe not with that. What I'd like you to do is try that movement a couple times. You see what's different than maybe before pre-working that process, okay? Okay, just a quick check. Anything you noticed? You sort of took that little extra time to breathe through the eyes, work a process. Then we went through that motion. Anybody notice anything? It could be something like, now I'm more confused, which is possible. Right? These are a bit more advanced. Just don't worry about it. Anybody? Just off of that pattern? Just realizing that, see, I pick up the room in some sense. Nado Sensei, for example, what he might do is he might start out working the system here and then pick the room up. We tend to I tend to be more circle, situational, to center character. And he tends to start with the character, to balance the character, then go out here. So we tend to kind of, ultimately, if you start out there, you line up here. The energies create a character. Conversely, if you start to get the character, you start to get the energies around the character. You get the center, you get the circle. Start with a circle, you'll get a center. So you're working with me, so I tend to go from the circle to the center. But you need to be able to do the other. Okay? Let's see. This one is try. Now, what we're going to do is the changes. Okay, now, all of a sudden, you start to go into territory. What's going on? Okay. What I want you to do, instead of trying to figure the movements out, breathe through your eyes, work a process, and either be, if you want to, you can go here and then there, or conversely, you can over there and then here. So we have a movement here. We have other changes and possibilities. Now, what I'd like you to do, reconnect, breathing through the eyes. There's a tendency when you see all that activity out there, try to go in there and figure it out. Well, how do I do it? I'm confused. See, the further that goes out there, the noisier that becomes, the harder it really is to see what's going on, because you lose yourself. As you start to come back a little bit more here, whatever, you're getting clearer with yourself, therefore what's going on out there. You start to perceive it more directly. And when the mind is that noisy, we get pulled out a little bit, past a certain amount, that it's very toxic out there. Okay? Without trying to escape reality. There's the pandemic getting worse. How could that happen? Okay. There's all that stuff about Afghanistan. There's all this craziness out there, which to some degree affects us. So breathe through your eyes. You see through that. You don't escape it. Start to be able to express your opinions on it. You don't have to be judgmental. You can have a feel sense of more compassionate view. And you can have, you start to get some courage, Be more decisive about what you will, what you cannot do, and can do with the situation. And you start to get the feet. You breathe through your feet, and we all come out of the earth, go back to it, stand on it. It's a unifier. Then there's a clarity of yourself there. With the breathing through the eyes, is a good sort of gateway to Then if we're going to do movement, what was that? It just is what it is. That motion is that motion, that motion is that motion. So what I'd like you to do, get up and move. You're running things like, what do I do next? Or how do I do that? Breathe through your eyes and move. And that's a very important thing. So let's just get up, move. Okay, let's just check in a bit. So, that is important. A lot of times, you just start, work a process. Again, breathing through the eyes. When I'm out here trying to figure it out, okay. Anybody with anything to share on that? That's sometimes you're just looking and staring right into the void. Oh, what do I do? I don't know what to do. Breathe through your eyes. See what happens. Anybody? That's a tough one.
Well, I must be doing something right because I dropped my Joe quite spectacularly in the middle of it.
Yeah. There's a point where I gotta hold on to something and just let it fall. That's a good teacher. Now, ideally what happens when you drop it, it's very alive. It goes because I'm going like, dun, dun, dun,
Oh,
dun.
it was very alive. It was like bang, 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 bang.
Yeah. You gotta watch out sometimes it doesn't jump at you and poke you in the eye. There's a lot of energy there. Yeah. That's the energy, again, when I go circle first, the room, then I line up here. Nado Sensei is very much the opposite. He really likes to balance it here. Then you go out and can go into the energies. And, which style is correct? Well, he's been doing his style a bit longer than I have doing mine, but I don't know. I like it this way personally because it's freer. All right, not that the other one, it's so balanced, right? All right, boom, 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 boom. So I like that freedom. And then what happens? Those the energy is moving out there. They will create an increasingly balanced level of you or me. Okay, that's kind of the way I do it. Okay. Anybody else? How do you feel with that? Breathe through the eyes. Okay. And what we do is we spend some time with bokken. Okay. Now there's all this stuff you sort of have to know, like diagonal grip. Grip this way with the fingers and no, diagonal grip, little ring, middle index finger, thumb. The palm is the first contact. And then the other hand, the left, the same thing. Don't choke up too much. You want about a fist length between your lower hand, your left, and your right. So you have to kind of know that. Now, one of the things about breathing through your eyes, the cut pulls me out. It's a little bit like, okay, you're working with becomes the center because that's where your attention is throwing okay. And then my shoulders go up and I try to do it better. I'm gonna take a second or two. Breathe through the eyes. Let's get a sense of this. That for me and this. See that? You didn't pull out in the cut. Breathe through your eyes. So I find when I do that, there's less, pulled out, trying to get it better out there. So swing a couple times. Okay, now pause, breathe through your eyes, work the process. Okay. Anybody notice any sort of a difference before, after? Just regularly, just swinging the bokken. Anybody? Cliff, do you have anything to share your experience at all?
I feel a little more aware of my environment, a little more clarity.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, well, you're clearing. If all you are is just swinging the sword, well, there was a story years ago. Our former governor and resident movie star Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he was kind of doing all this stuff, and he walks into a gym and sees how everybody's training, and he just goes, because like everybody, the body was a temple. He was kind of trying to touch something, spirit or whatever it is, through the body, okay? And he looked at how everybody else was scanning. So as you start to clear, your senses are starting to clear. Okay, things start to get into focus a little bit more as opposed to just being out there in that. That's good. Anybody else? Anything to share about before and after? Okay, then what I'm going to have you do is get out there and swing again. Just swing. Practice the cut. Now, pause, breathe through your eyes, and work whatever process. You might want to kind of breathe. Here, first establish yourself, and then the room starts to fill in. Or conversely, you might get the room first, which is what I get. And then this starts to fill in. Center of circle or circle of center, all right? Both work, I hope. Okay. And swing some more. Okay. Anybody on that round? Anything before or after?
The area of my awareness seems to be getting larger.
Okay. You're getting clearer. Your focus is larger. If it's just on moving that better or doing that more properly or whatever it is, it's a small focus. A little different when you start to work the process. Okay. Anybody else? That's, by the way, that's the frontier most of you could explore. Okay. All right. And yeah, raise. So this is a pretty big raise. This is a shallower raise. That's a deeper cut. Now, what I want you to see a little bit, I'm out there checking, trying to do the cut better. That's a little bit like uke becomes your center because you're trying to throw uke. Okay? Breathe through the eyes. Sort of gets there, doesn't it? But the shift is not so much how did I do or how did the sword move out there, more there's the see, when you're doing something, whether it's music, how am I going to do? Align, settle, process, play in the moment. Okay. So, I'd like you to do, pause. Again, just sort of breathe through the eyes. Now, get up and swing. There's that deeper cut. Think of that as Tojima Sensei's cut. Roger Frazier was commenting on it. See, that was O-Sensei's cut too. Or that was O-Sensei's cut, and that was Tojima Sensei's cut as well. So, swing. Okay. Check in for a second. Anybody an observation before or after? Just a second. Hello? Spam call. We're waiting for some vital stuff from EDD in a couple places. So sometimes important calls appear like spam calls. You better check them out. Anybody? Anything to share on that?
Sensei,
Yeah.
it felt more like catching it the second time. So first time I was kind of throwing it. The second time I felt like I was more catching as it was dropping the bokken.
Catching, could you go, what are you catching again?
So as it's dropping, I feel like it's like I'm catching it instead of I'm throwing it kind of the second time.
Yeah, I would say that you're beginning to feel like you're catching it. You're beginning to feel, which is different than just doing it. So yeah, that's pretty big. You see what I mean? Doesn't seem like much, but I'm beginning to catch it. Yeah, okay. Or conversely, it's starting to make sense, but it's not in that swirl of thoughts and then trying to do it out there. We're starting to get clearer. We're starting to feel it before we're starting to catch it. So that's good. That's good. Okay. Anybody else before we go? Whoa, just just that simple cut. There's an awful lot. Okay, just the ability to, it's real difficult to get the closing motion out there when my eyes are out there checking to see if I'm doing it. You're breathing through your eyes. That's why I thought, that again, I just happened, I think it was a couple of days ago, I was just reading a basketball piece about how this one guy, Jason Kidd, who was a, top, probably a Hall of Fame type guy, but not a great shooter. But he goes to this team, actually the first team that drafted him, they got traded a couple of times. They went back to it. He won a title with that team. But the star of the team was not him. It was a man named Dirk Nowitzki, who was kind of a earlier version of Kevin Durant. Okay. In other words, he's about 7 foot tall, but he could shoot from way out there. And Kid says, "Well, teach me the secret of your job." It's a little bit like, you go up to O-Sensei and say, "Teach me the secret of your Aikido." He might look at us and go, "Okay, now what does this person need? What does that person need? What does that person need?" He might tell each of us something different from his interior, more enlightened place. But anyway, what Nowitzki did, he did the standard about the elbow and the feet and everything. Then he said, what blew Jason Kidd away, he says, breathe through your eyes. And this is important, breathe through your eyes. Why? Because the hoop is out there, my vision's out there, I'm going to be hit and miss. Now you're going to miss anyway, because that's just the nature of basketball. But when you're breathing through your eyes, you're seeing with soft eyes. Boom. Most of the time when I'm out here, the shot is too forced. And it's too obvious I'm going to shoot. But here, boom. I wouldn't be surprised if you said, Steph, if Nowitzki says breathe through your eyes, and Steph might kind of say, yeah, I kind of do that. But I do a couple other things that are sure of that. You know, so a lot of times the people that are past the norm are working a process which is past the norm. And so how many people go, breathe through your eyes when you're shooting a basketball? I think, you know, if instead of being a little too out there, just to stand on one leg, Mr. O probably had to learn to breathe through his eyes. You see, in those sensei said, you know, if you look at the sword, you get cut. Don't look at the attacker. You're not. You're breathing through your eyes, so your vision is not impaired, but you see what I mean. You're not looking that way. So a lot of stuff what sensei says, I mean, I don't know whether he would agree with this breathe through your eyes, but a good practice to do sometimes. For example, breathe through your ears. And you know, there's so much that we hear in the news that's not good. You know, politics, people lie all the time. You can breathe through your ears. Breathe through your tongue when you gently put it on the roof of your mouth. See, taste. I'm thinking about taste is something out there. Then breathe through your skin. But the vision is so primary that breathe through your eyes is a thing you can do. You know, which you can do, for example, initially you might be challenged doing it when you're driving, but when you come to a stop, take a second to breathe through your eyes before you cross the intersection. Just things like that. And then just pay attention to, you know, who you are as you get deeper into that process, as opposed to who we are when the eyeballs are out here and we're kind of caught up in you know, living at which we would call very ordinary levels of reality, which can be very toxic. And so as we clear the senses, we get a clearer sense of ourselves and a clearer sense of the world. Then we begin to, in the docence that talks about sensing. One thing that you can try is close your eyes and breathe through your eyes. That's where you start to pick up the sensing images, or the energy currents. Okay? Initially as well, how can I breathe through my eyes? My eyes are closed. But when I breathe through my eyes, my body kind of lights up. Really get a good sense of the 360. We start to get images like, you know, a very ancient tree, like in the Asgardian myths, you know, the whole of the creation is this tree. And those 9 realms, roots, branches. So, you know, when the docensei talks about sensing, you can practice that a bit. Then, you know, you oftentimes get the ability to do that with your eyes open. Okay, so anyway, a couple of hints. Anybody else, anything before we go? Remember, this Sunday, no Mountain View class. I'm actually supposed to teach at the CAA event. if you're going to go to that, most of you are going to have to go online. You have to register. There's actually a fee for it, but that keeps the association going. I actually have to pay $20 to register, which I do freely. Okay. So some of you, if you decide to tune in, then I'll see you online. And we may work something like this, because this is a good process. I wish, personally, I wish that we could do the Mountain View class, because I'd like to get a little bit more into it. Breathe through your eyes, but then again, you're going to move and see the effects of a more aligned, a clearer version of yourself, a clearer version of the world or situation. Right? And that's something that is actually quite important. Since they talked about Misogi, most of us are not going to do the Shinto rituals. Okay, but I think the essence of what he was talking about is very doable, even in a much more about a modern age, so to speak. Because some of those practices into are very ancient. Okay. Anyway, before we go, anybody? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we will. Some of you.